Gonna get through this. All right, can it see me?
Yep. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for coming again. I have to give a professional development for my master's in reading through ETSU. So I decided to do one on Nancy Atwell's book, The Reading Zone. Has anyone ever read that book before in here? Oh, good. So you won't know too much about it and you won't be completely bored. I read it this summer and I actually really did like it. It's about like how to incorporate silent reading and like a really good silent reading workshop into your daily schedule. And that was kind of something I never really did before because especially with our old schedule, like 6 hours a day, like I just didn't think independent reading was valuable enough. I'm like, no, that's not worth 20 minutes of my awesome curriculum time. So I didn't really have it, but after reading this book, it's definitely one of those books that you read it and you're like, oh my gosh, this woman has an amazing classroom. Everyone gets along. This is going to be my room next year because I'm going to include this. And then like a week into school, I was like, all right, so like my classroom isn't going to exactly be like her room, but I'll make do with what it is. So let's get started. All right. Our agenda today, we're going to start with an icebreaker, discuss what the reading zone is and isn't, create a reader's bill of rights for our classrooms, analyze an appropriate environment, and understand your role in the reading zone, and then if you can do a ticket out the door, I'd really appreciate it. So for an icebreaker, you have little packets, and I made them to where it's like 4 pages a page just to save on paper and not kill any more trees than necessary. So you see the box where it says icebreaker. I want you to think about a book that you read. It can be any time in your life when you were a little kid, in middle school, whatever, where you were like completely engrossed in the book. Like you couldn't break away. You had to keep reading the next pages. Like you almost like struggled between reality and the book. Like kind of start thinking about that and draw a scene from the book. You have 2 minutes. Go. Go. I guess you could also like write the title. I won't put you on the spot with drawing. I'm a drawing person, so. My goodness. I did not realize my smartboard was that loud. So your 2 minutes is up. Does anyone have a book they're willing to share that they like completely could not break away from? Don't want to put anyone on the spot.
I just remember in high school reading The Great Gatsby, and I thought it was like just amazing. I don't know. I guess I've always liked like historical fiction and stuff too. So like feeling like you're like back in that era or whatever.
Very cool. Anyone else willing to share?
I went with like a children's book. I did The Giving Tree. Even as an adult, I can't even read it out loud unless I am okay with crying in front of whoever I'm reading it to.
Oh, that's a
I
good
just love that
one.
book.
Yeah, that is good. There's several read alouds where like in here I'll get choked up and they can tell like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. Give me a moment.
Just reliving childhood.
Yeah. Stay young. I guess I'll share my picks. So one that I did was Junie B. Jones and the Stupid Smelly Bus. When I was a kid, I vividly remember I was reading this. I was in kindergarten when I read this book. And I was like reading it on my bed to my mom. And she like gets knocked down on the bus and someone steps on her skirt that looks like velvet. And I just started bawling. And my mom was like, what's wrong? And I was like, they're stepping on her skirt and it's just not fair. And she's like, you need to get it together. This is a book. And I'm like, I just could not get over it. And I was like, but if it was me and I was on that bus, like it'd be terrible. And she was like, I mean, I went to a private school, so nothing like that ever happened. But she was just like, I just could not break away from if that was me. And then as a child, like Harry Potter, I was totally into those. And Lord of the Rings in middle school, I read all the Lord of the Rings books 3 times. Like, I had like elf ears that I would wear to school. I was a cheerleader too, so that was kind of an interesting combo. But I just like was so a nerd and into those two, and I just loved that it was something different from the world I was in. It was magical and it was new, and people had more powers, and maybe that's why I liked it, because I could imagine myself in a different place than where I was. And then as an adult, I don't know if anyone's read the book Wild by Cheryl. Like, oh my gosh, I mean, I like to go camping anyway. Me and my family go on, week-long hikes and stuff. So that, I think because it was so relatable to me, I really got into that book and had trouble breaking away from it. So yeah, those are my picks. But the point is with the reading zone is you want kids to experience that every day in your classroom, that like completely surrounded, they don't hear anything else about it. They are so into that book that they can't put it down. This is a quote from the book. It was actually a 7th grade student said this, and I was really into it. It said, first of all, you see what's happening in your head, like a movie screen. You care about the characters and think about what you would do at every point, where they make a decision. You block out the sounds of the outside world. Eventually, it doesn't feel like you're reading. You don't seem to be actually reading the words as much as it's just happening. At last, you don't want to stop reading. So I thought that was really cool that a middle school boy could feel that way about reading a book. So that's what the reading zone is. It's an uninterrupted, untimed block of independent reading, and that she like really stressed. She's like, obviously in my schedule, like I have it timed, but I don't let them know it. And she really makes a point of making it anywhere from like 15 to 30 minutes so they can't watch a clock the entire time. They don't know when it's going to end, how long it's going to be. And it is independent reading. She's offering no support. They're not reading with partners. They're by themselves. That's her Reader's Workshop. And when I say her, I guess I mean Nancy Atwell. And she is a 7th grade ELA teacher, so it's a little different from, especially the younger grades, where like I feel like my whole day is an ELA block of time, where she just has an hour with them. And it's a really good progress monitoring opportunity if you play it right. All right, what it's not. It's not drop everything and read, and it's not SSR. And she keeps like saying these points. And the whole time I was reading her book, I was like, no, it is sustained silent reading. Like, no, it is a drop everything and read. And she also makes a point saying it's definitely not a teacher's break that you can just kind of do whatever. The reason it's not those things, again, kind of comes with that timed aspect. She talked about how her school used to be really into SSR, and it was 15 minutes. And she said half of her kids were reading the clock more than they were reading their books, basically. And with Drop Everything and Read, a school I was at was like really into this for 2 weeks, and they would like make the teachers read too, and the janitors had to read. And it was a really good idea in theory, but I missed an opportunity to go and monitor my students when I was reading my Harry Potter book or something like that. And like I said, we kept up with it like really good 2 weeks, and after that it became my time to grade papers and organize stuff. So it didn't really work out as well as I'd hoped. Why it's important: independent reading increases students' vocabularies, test scores, autonomy, confidence, and critical thinking skills. This, I guess, kind of goes back to the theories that go along with it, where when they're independently reading, they're finding out those things on their own. They're not getting any guidance. And a lot of teachers will worry, like, what if they never get it? Well, if you tell them, they'll never get the chance to get it on their own. And research shows that higher achieving schools, students spend more time reading independently than lower achieving schools. I was reading Nancy Atwell's blog, and she said it's just kind of like a direct correlation when school scores start to lower. As a reaction, they take away independent reading because they think, oh, kids need more instruction, and that's really not it. Also, it fosters a love of reading and a personal art, and that's where I was kind of really getting into this book of like, these kids love reading, and I don't care about my kids' test scores. I don't care, well, I do care, if they don't move up on the RI. Like, in first grade, I want the goal to be that they like to read, and it makes them happy, because finally they can do something that they weren't able to do at the beginning of the year. She makes a point that it's not guided reading. I like to have my videos in here. A lot of people with independent reading will still ask students to like use the Post-it notes to make notes or graphic organizers, and like, I'm a Post-it queen, I love my graphic organizers at my guided reading table, but she makes a point, you're not doing that. Like, this is just them getting into a book. If they can't tell you the main character and the plot, a graphic organizer isn't going to help them. That means they need a new book at a lower level. You shouldn't have any vocabulary, no questions, no novel studies packet. Everyone should be reading a different book. And there's no reader response journals. And actually that's a lie, because it kind of is at the end. But her point in the whole thing was she would host these independent reading workshops, go back, and these teachers were still like, okay, but you should still have 2 bullet points on your sticky, or like, oh, where's your reading diary thing? It's like, no, because if I am getting into a book, the last thing I want to do is break away from that spell and have to tell you what 2 characters were and why they're fighting. And that's kind of her whole point. I was still like really fighting on of like, no, but I want to prove that my kids are reading. And it kind of hit me. If I'm watching a television show and my husband were to stop it every 10 minutes and say like, how do you think this character is developing? And I'd have to answer him, or like, tell me, what do you think the climax is so far? Like, I would get really annoyed really quickly, and I wouldn't be able to get into the movie. And that's her thing of like, this isn't time for you to increase your scores or for a kid to be able to identify this stuff. This is the time where they can love reading and find out this stuff on their own. So the next thing is the Reader's Bill of Rights, and she was like really passionate about this. And Daniel Pennack actually gave this to her. And some of the Reader's Bill of Rights that she uses in her workshops are the right not to read something, the right to skip pages, the right not to finish, the right to reread, the right to read anything, the right to escapism, the right to read anywhere, the right to browse, the right to read out loud, the right not to defend your taste. And when I kind of saw these at first, I was like, wait, the right to skip pages? They can't skip a page? That's not allowed. Like, it's a book. They're going to miss something. Or the right not to finish kind of really threw me off too. And she just defends it. She's like, so what if they skip a page? Like, you may want to go to the end, find out what happens, and then go back to it. You're really bored on this page, just go ahead and skip it. If you miss information, you'll realize it, want to go back and read it. And she was saying how she'll have kids who, they'll try out a book, they'll read 10 pages, not like it, put it back. And they'll just do that constantly and constantly. And she says, so what if they're not finishing books? Like, they're realizing what doesn't work for them, which is just as important. Of course, me and my brain, I'm like, well, I'm going to have those kids who get a book, flip through them all, and say, I'm reading though, I'm allowed to skip pages and challenge me. And she says, like, of course, those kids you can, like, stop and have a talking to of, like, this is, you're manipulating this rule, this doesn't work. So, y'all have a copy of the Reader's Bill of Rights. I want you to kind of look through it and talk with the people at your table about maybe the rules that you would use in your class and the rules that you would get or like take out. Like, you have the right, if you think, no, the right to skip pages is not going to work in my classroom, you can take it out if you need to. But work with your table and find like two Bill of Rights that you would use in your classroom tomorrow during independent reading.